Hello and welcome to Move the Line, presented by 4for4.com. Betting subscription at 4for4.com. It's the only resource you need for a profitable NFL season. If you're looking to win your fantasy league, play best ball, bet on any sport or any market, 4for4.com is where you need to be this season. I'm Ryan Noonan, excited to continue our divisional preview series, joined here, as always, by Connor Allen. What's going on, bud?
Yeah, not a whole lot. It's an exciting division to break down. Obviously, you are a Patriots fan, as everyone who listens to the show knows. But you've remained, I would say, very objective for the most part for the last couple of years. And it's been tough. And I think you've been willing to admit that heading into the season. You haven't always been looking at it with rose-colored glasses. But I'm excited to get your takes this time because I think that there could be some reasons for optimism. So definitely excited to dig into it. And I'm if you go too far over the edge and say they're going to win the Super Bowl, I might have to reel you back in, but interested to hear your takes.
There is nothing like less relatable or anything that like the audience can actually gravitate towards is like feeling sorry for any Patriots fans because of the down run of the last 5 years. So I, definitely not going to lean into that. I will politely accept your passive go pound sand, which would be appropriate if I were to really complain. Look, it was rough. It's hard not to be excited about Drake May and Mike Vrabel, right? So, we'll see what we think when we get to that market in terms of how the market's already responded to that optimism that I think we share in terms of making it bettable, which I think could be a little bit challenging. Again, reminder, 4for4.com is where you want to be in terms of, keeping it moving here. We started last week on our divisional preview. So if you check out 4for4 bets on the YouTube channel, Move the Line, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find our AFC North thoughts. I think that's a really exciting and interesting division. We talked about that at depth. 4for4.com/plans is where you can go over to scoop up the betting subscription. Again, you want all the picks and all the plays, everything that we're doing this season, and a lot of exciting stuff to come here very shortly in terms of what football is going to look like from us this season. We're excited about that. News to come, but 4for4.com/plans, reach out directly to us if you have any specific questions. Getting in the Discord is really where you want to be there because that's where all the official plays are. It's a great community. And again, we're betting on, pretty much any market or sport that you can have these days. So check it out. All right. AFC East. From a scheduling standpoint this year, Connor, we are looking at, where are we in the AFC East? They are playing the AFC North. So teams we talked about last week, and then the NFC South. Bills are obviously the favorite, which makes a ton of sense. They are going for their 6th straight AFC East crown. Should be, obviously a sizable pivot from the New England run. 7-1 for Buffalo to win the Super Bowl, pretty much across the board. They are plus 360 on FanDuel to win the AFC. Win total 11.5, juice to the over. There's 12.5, plus 105 on Caesars if that's your thing. Minus 260 to win the division. It's on FanDuel and DraftKings. We're looking at last week, Baltimore minus 140 to win that division. Buffalo clear favorites here. Minus 750 to make the playoffs if you want to fade them. Essentially a bet on Josh Allen getting hurt, I guess, would be plus 550 to miss the playoffs. And they are as high as plus 275 to be the AFC's top seed. Also favorited to have the most wins in the league as well, plus 450. So Connor, get started. Obviously, whatever this team does in the regular season, I think Bills fans probably tell you it doesn't matter. It's all about what they can do in terms of Baltimore and especially Kansas City when it comes to playoff time. But what are your thoughts on the Bills?
Yeah, it's tough when you get teams in the position where they consistently are good in the regular season. I think Baltimore is a similar dilemma where they consistently win a lot of games and then just fall short. And I think part of it's just Patrick Mahomes syndrome of just not being able to get over the hump there of like, you just can't beat Patrick Mahomes. And they have the opposite problem. Like, they're just never they're fine in the regular season the last few years and then are always just able to win the playoffs. So I think this could be the year. But I mean, they're the only team in the league right now favored in all 17 games using look ahead lines, which I thought was interesting. And their early season schedule it's interesting. I mean, week 1 against Baltimore at home, 1.5 point favorites, but then they're 8.5 point favorites against the Jets, the Dolphins, the Saints. And then they get 12.5 against the Saints, 8.5 again against New England. And then it's against Atlanta and then they're bye. So it's like, I mean, they're almost certainly going to be 5-1. Like maybe they drop one of those games randomly. But they could also very well be 6-0 heading into their bye. So and then from a roster construction standpoint, like I don't really have too many holes to pick. The offensive line was a top 5 unit according to Justin Edwards, like offensive line rankings. They ran the ball really well, which kind of like I think reduced any of the volatility that Josh Allen provides. And yeah, we're just able to like be a dominant running team. So for me, it's like I don't know if anything, you think anything too much has changed in the defense. They struggled at times defending the run. Obviously, there was the famous Derrick Henry game against them last year, but I think they kind of figured that out, and that was mostly due to injuries. So interested in your thoughts on the defensive side, though.
Well, I mean, they heavily invested. That was pretty much what they did all offseason, was just focus on the defense. They added 6 new defensive linemen, 3 in the draft and 3 in free agency. 2 the free agents, Michael Hulk from the Rams and Larry Ogunjobi. I don't think we've got those suspensions yet, but they both got dinged for PEDs. Joey Bosa's in the mix from an edge standpoint. Just again, probably just a situational third down, clear passing down, edge rusher. They struggle with speed to hold up, I think, against the Chiefs. We saw that in the playoffs a little bit. So first round pick, Maxwell Harrison, will, I think, be asked to step in and kind of lock that in right away. They think they need a little bit more talent at safety. They added Cole Bishop in the draft the year before. I think, again, more talent, more speed. I think you see him probably in a starting role this year too. So look, they threw a lot at it and just said, let's just see what kind of comes of it. So it's a pretty good defense overall. There's a lot of depth. Same thing with the offensive line, like you mentioned too, like everyone's back. That's huge. All 6 of the guys that they use a lot, and they use 6 offensive linemen more than any team. They'll run a lot of jumbo, which you can do with Josh Allen. So yeah, I mean, look, they just stay healthy. It's kind of the more questions at wide receiver, just like last year, just like who can win in that wide receiver room with Josh Palmer's in, Elijah Moore's in, like, who ends up kind of emerging there will be interesting to see. But, Josh Allen is just kind of the elixir that can heal all wounds. He stays healthy. They'll figure it out. James Cook has a hold out. I don't know what what's going on there. They'll figure it out. They'll get him in there, and should be an awesome regular season team, especially with the schedule, 5th easiest schedule. Like, that's tough when you look at how these schedules shake out, and you have some bad teams just going back to back on tough schedules, and you get a team like the Bills having an easy one. Like, their unique 3 compared to the rest of the division is tougher. They get at Houston, they host Kansas City again, and then they host Philly, I think, in week 17 or something like that. So a late season one that, could matter for both teams in terms of, where they are in their playoffs. But I mean, look, we get healthy Josh Allen with this schedule, I don't know, those plus 275 to be the top seed in the AFC, plus 450 to be, have the team with the most wins are probably the best ways to bet Buffalo. I mean, like plus 360 to win the AFC. I think I'd rather just go more wins because that's just a regular season thing. And I think what we feel significantly better about their chances of doing that than maybe getting over the Mahomes hump again in the playoffs.
Right. Yeah. I just, we talk about this all the time. I struggle with like laying the chalk in the large field markets because there's like, all it takes is one thing to go wrong in some way. Like maybe, I don't know, like the defense doesn't play as well, or the offensive line is an injury or two. And then it's just like Josh Allen scrambling behind that line, trying to find Keon Coleman or Khalil Shakir, or I don't know. Like, their receiving core is totally underrated, like just not very good, I would say. But yeah, I mean, to your point, like they're tough to pick too many holes in. They're going to win a lot of games. And so I really struggle with this Bills team, like find much value in the betting market because it's very much baked in. Like if you want to bet them to have they're going to be certainly almost in contention to have the best record, but it's like, do you want to bet like plus 360 or whatever to have the best record? Probably not.
Yeah. It's the only way. And otherwise you're just essentially, if you're fading the Bills, I feel like even some of the things you're talking about, like if we had injuries on the defensive side or along the offensive line, they still are probably okay if Josh is okay. It's just essentially does Josh Allen get hurt bad? That's pretty thin to be making. So the only way that I would bet them would be 450 to have the most wins. But again, they're top of that market. So that's also just hard to feel like you're eating some chalk in that too. So they're a tough one to find a way to bet on.
Yeah, one quick player note. I think that James Cook's touchdowns might be a little bit high. Last year, it was set at 2.5 over under. He obviously went way over that. He scored a wildly high number of rushing touchdowns from way out. But they also shifted to more of a run-heavy approach. Then this year's over-under is 9.5. I've been eyeing that under a little bit. Just maybe they use Ray Davis a little bit more. Maybe Josh Allen is more red zone work. Maybe he doesn't break I think he broke like 5 touchdowns longer than 40 yards, maybe 6, something like that. So there's a lot of ways that can fail. It's something I was eyeing today. We were prepping for the show. Could be an official play, TBD on that. And then also I think Dalton Kincaid props could be interesting at some point. Matthew Berry on his like post combine prep thing said that like basically people he was talking to said that Dalton Kincaid was just like really injured and like, wasn't really like it wasn't really like a game plan thing. It was just like he was injured and like wasn't 100% for most of the year. And, I'm pretty sure I know where that came from. And it was, a source close to the situation here, I would say, about as close as possible. So, I think that Kincaid could be an interesting, like, I don't know, post-hype bounce back kind of guy. But again, like they're just going to run the ball a ton. Like they're going to run the ball as much as they can, probably just to like milk the game away and then be efficient because they can run it well. So it's not like it's even like a bad thing. They're good at it. So,
yeah. Jeff in the chat with Shakir over 775. I mean, I know where you stand on that. I can't imagine that you like that. I don't like it either. And I feel like there's, to your point, like I just would want to, I think you can probably pick off some week to week stuff instead because like Shakir will probably be lined in like the mid 40s. And then all these other guys will be like the 20s. And like if someone emerges, right? Like if it's Josh Palmer, if we get Keon Coleman, like someone really emerges, maybe there's some week to week value, but I don't want anything season long with any of these guys really. The rules are too in question.
It's almost like with Jaden Reed stuff. Like if the game plan dictates they're going to play a lot of 3 wide receiver stuff for Jaden Reed, he's like a smash. If they're not and they're just going to run the ball, like he's going to play like 40% of the snaps, 50% of the snaps because Shakir basically mostly plays in the slot. We even projected for a little bit more. We have him at like 843. So yeah, Jeff, if you got like a free bet that you're burning a hole in your pocket that you really want to bet on Shakir some way, I mean, sure, I think that's fine. He's just very much like a high floor, low ceiling kind of guy. I think at this point, like I just don't see the upside with him right now. Like I feel like we would have already seen it, to be honest.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, there's just so much room game plan wise for them to just go so run heavy. And yeah, I got like, that's just a little bit tricky. So clear division favorites. And, again, it'd be really shocking. I think FanDuel has like conference championship game markets and like, just, it's getting really hard to like minus 190 to be in like the AFC Final Four or something like that. It's like, it's just insane to kind of lay that to, Josh Allen goes down and you're holding a real bad ticket. So Bills are tough to kind of bet on early. So, all right, we'll make the shift to, I believe what's referred to as God's country, New England, 70-1 to win the Super Bowl on FanDuel. Win total 8.5. There's some 7.5s early, 8.5 over plus 100, minus 120 on Caesars. Best division price that's out there is also on Caesars for the Patriots, plus 6.25. FanDuel has them at plus 148 to make the playoffs, minus 170 to miss. Best price there at Caesars. Look, great offseason. I think we can't understate how bad Gerard Mayo was as a in-game well, I don't really limit to his in-game play because at the podium was just as bad, right? Like say something, not hold up what he said, and then not explain why he made a change. It was just kind of it was rough. And then obviously week 18, the team is the Bills are baiting you to win that game. You just go out and like punt on the number 1 pick, which is just asinine. Again, it works out. They had a great draft. I think Will Campbell is exactly what they need, but you give up all the leverage that you had from having the number 1 pick and being able to move it for more assets. You could have still landed Will Campbell and got a lot more. But again, they had a ton of cash. They infused talent on both sides of the ball. You pair that with Drake May in year 2 with a better offensive coordinator and system with Josh McDaniels, who's just one of these guys, just a lot of these guys in the last 20, 25 years, and probably longer than that, they're not maybe wired to be a head coach in this league, but you get them in a coordinator role and they could thrive. And McDaniels has clearly been that at pretty much most stops. So I'm really excited about what's going on here. And again, as we touched on offline, the challenge in terms of betting New England, and even in my optimism, is the market's really responded to these expectations, right? This is a 4-win football team that really was a 3-win football team. And now we're sitting at 8.5 wins. So like we're expecting 4.5 win jump. So it's really hard to find ways to leverage it in the betting market. So what are your thoughts on the Pats, and is there any way to bet on them right now?
Yeah, and in my thread that I did about like, look ahead lines and everything, they're expected to take the biggest leap, favored in 11 games this year, which is wild. But
Second easiest schedule.
yeah, and including 7 of their first 9 games, they're favored. And so if you look at the schedule here, I think that their season is going to be like basically it's a make or break in the first half of the year. Like they have Vegas, Miami, Pittsburgh, Carolina, Buffalo, at Buffalo, a little tough, at New Orleans, Tennessee, Cleveland, Atlanta. Like all of those games are winnable. Every single one of them is winnable for the Patriots. Like, I mean, if you tell me that they come out of that, I think it's a 9-game stretch, 6-3, I would not be surprised at all. Like that's very winnable. Now, if they come out of that stretch, like whatever, 4-5 or something like that, I mean, you're not hitting 8 wins. You're not hitting 9 wins. That's for sure. Because it's basically made or break there. Because they do have some tough games down the stretch of that second half of the season, but they need to capitalize early. So, like, I think it's going to be like a make or break time in the first 9 games. They obviously added some other weapons. Travion Henderson is good. Stephon Diggs is a solid addition there. Kyle Williams, drafting him is great too. Like, I think they have some kind of competent receiving room, and then probably stick like Pop Douglas as we get a little bit of hype, like maybe in the slot there as well. So you put all those guys out there, the offensive line is still, I guess fine-ish. Justin, it's funny, Justin Edwards has them bad. Like he has them at 29th. I think they'll be better than 29th, but like I would have guessed closer to like 20, maybe like a little bit below average, but I think probably depends a lot on Will Campbell. So I don't know. Defense continues to play well. You have Mike Vrabel coming in, talent maximizer, we think. So I would say cautiously optimistic, but I would almost prefer to bet them on a game-to-game basis. Like, I don't know. I would probably take them to win against Pittsburgh, take them to win against Carolina. -3 at New Orleans. I don't know. I mean, I think the Saints are going to be so bad. So I think that's an interesting one too. So like, I think it's just like a week-to-week basis. I'd probably prefer to play them and then bet the over on their win total of 8.5.
Kind of agree. Or you could be really bullish, but you're not even getting a good number. Like if you were to try to take it like an alt at 10 wins or something like that, like that's, now that we're at 8.5. I don't even know what the price is for that.
I'll look.
But it's probably but it's gonna be like plus 190 or something, right? It's not gonna be massive. It's not gonna be a ton of value.
Plus 155, not even.
Yeah,
win 10 games plus 155.
No, your best bet there is you can bet plus 170 to make, or no, I guess so. It's plus 148 on FanDuel to make the playoffs. So they're kind of somewhat correlated in terms of, again, you can win 10 games in the AFC and miss the playoffs. This is a loaded conference, right? You're that's very much within the range of outcomes. So tough to bet on. I agree. I think the offensive line's probably better than that. They retained most of the guys that they had last year that were not very good. They're just all backups now, which is great. But at least they have like starting caliber, guys that have, played in the league. It's just defense is, I think, going to be really good. Vrabel is a talent maximizer. They, I think, are significantly better at all 3 levels. I think they kind of have depth at all 3 levels, which is necessary. Like they signed Carlton Davis. Like Carlton Davis will play 13 to 14 football games. At some point, he will get hurt and miss 3 weeks. It happens every single year, but they have a little bit more depth behind them too. So that's something they haven't really had in the past. So it's easy to be optimistic. It's just a matter of what does the Drake May leap look like? And is there a Drake May leap, right? It's hard not to think that if he could be as solid as he was last year with, again, I don't even think you can argue it. That receiving core was just
so bad.
It was so bad. They couldn't really run the football. The offensive line, no protection. There's more discussion. I think probably the best way to bet on the Pats early, this is a market that I love, it's quarterback rushing. There's a lot more talk about we want to lean into that a little bit more this year with Drake May. He ran more in college. They seemed really reluctant to like design anything that way last year. So even if you get like 2 to 3, even 1 to 2 design runs layered into that too, I think it's going to be a pretty interesting way to kind of bet on that. So, mid-20s, I think could be an interesting way in props to kind of attack it early in the season. So thoughts on Jeff's mentioning May passing yards over 32.75. It's just, again, season-long passing numbers like this. It's just not a market that I think either of us love, though it seems a little bit light.
Yeah, we have 35.05. I don't know if he's really in reach to get like 4K. I mean, I have real questions about Stephon Diggs, like just in general. he didn't look all that good last year, coming off a torn ACL. He's old. As Jeff mentioned, he was ripping some tussy on a boat with Cardi B, all off season. Like, I don't know really how seriously he's taking everything at this point. That being said, like,
It's
if
the
he comes out,
summer. Who's it?
yeah, like,
A little bump on the boat. Like, he's all right.
yeah, like it could be fine. I mean, it's just like, I don't have any reason to think that he's going to be good. Like, that's the problem. Outside of like,
It's fair.
I don't know. I mean, like, what, he was fine last year. Was it like, would you consider he was good? He was fine, I would say.
I think he was fine last year. I think he was, I would say, I don't know, average, slightly above average. He wasn't like world beater Stephon Diggs. I think he could be okay. I'm excited about Kyle Williams.
We're
talking about a rookie third rounder, right? So third round rookies, there's, it's easy to get excited about those guys, and they don't hit. Mac Hollins is an interesting character just in terms of like the run game, but not necessarily like a guy I would expect to help separate, passing wise. It's Travion Henderson is the one that I'm really excited about. I thought it was a home run selection for them. Not hard to find like nice beat reports telling you about how this dude loves to pass protect and get his nose in there. And, those things help when you're a rookie. That's sometimes where rookies have trouble getting on the field. So definitely a layer of explosiveness that they maybe were lacking with Ramondre, who's, starting to fumble a little bit more. So there could be some excitement there. So yeah, I'm bullish on him, but in terms of betting on, 7.5, I'd be here caping up a little bit harder for an over 7.5, but 8.5, a little bit tricky. And the betting markets will tell you that they're underdogs to make the playoffs. And I think that's probably fair, even with the optimism.
Yeah. And I think part of it, the reason too, is like another team that we're going to talk about in a second with the Dolphins. So it's like, how that all plays in, and then just like, yeah, we can get there in a second, but I don't think it's tough because the first two teams we talked about, I don't think there's great ways to bet them. The next two teams, I do have some bets, I think, for on the side and props and stuff.
All right, sweet. Yeah, so schedule's easy, and again, 5 games against teams that are expected to have a winning record this season. So like, there's opportunity here. There's not a ton of like super difficult stretches coming, I think, out of the bye. Buffalo, Baltimore. That's kind of it. So. All right, we'll shift gears. Miami is next on the board. 80-1 to win the Super Bowl. Win total 7.5. DraftKings slightly juiced to the over. I think there's some like varying numbers out there in terms of where books have this price. So you can shop around. There might even be some middle opportunities if you want to arb Miami to land on like 7 or 8 wins. I think there's some other stuff out there if you shop around. They are plus 210 on FanDuel to make the playoffs, minus 200 on Caesars to miss it. 9th easiest schedule in the league. So all these AFC East teams have fairly easy schedules. Interesting number. Maybe, I don't want to lead you to where you're not going. Maybe you have some pro Miami stuff. 25-1 have the worst record in the league, which I think is interesting because I think the floor here is extremely low, but I'll let you talk to me about the Dolphins.
No, I think that it almost entirely depends on Tua's health. So Mike McDaniel is head coach of the Dolphins. Games with Tua, they're 25-15 in the last 3 years since Mike McDaniel took over. Without Tua, or where like the one he got injured, 3-8. The backup quarterback play, I mean, they added Zach Wilson. That should do nothing to quell
those
any
Miami
fears.
Milfs. The Miami Milfs, it's like solid.
Yeah, he couldn't stay away. I mean, I don't blame him. I'm sure. Yeah, lots of Milfs in Miami. Good for Zach. Getting the bag a little bit and. Maybe a couple other bags. You might spot him with Steph Diggs, in the offseason on some boats in Miami. But no, I think that like their offensive line did not get better. Jonnu Smith, they traded him away. They moved Jalen Ramsey, obviously in trade. They added Minka Fitzpatrick, who was, I would say, questionable, like in terms of talent remaining at this point. So I have a hard time getting there in terms of like upside. But if their guys are healthy, like they're going to compete in a lot of games that they shouldn't. And that's like kind of the problem with betting against this team is like, I think if Tua gets injured or it's just over, like at this point, like he's literally his career should end if he has another concussion. It probably should have already been over, but like, sure. One more concussion, it's basically over. And at that point, like, again, the Dolphins are very much a play to have the worst record in the league. So, but that being said, if they don't, like some of these look headlines are, I don't know, pretty weak. They're underdogs week 1 at Indy. Like, I mean, Indy sucks. Like, Indy is really bad. I know Miami is bad too, but like, that's just, they at least have some talent. Like, this is like, to me, I saw this is crazy. Like there's just a lot of look headlines where I'm like, okay, like, this is some of this is a little bit off. So I think that they're offensively could be fine. Underdogs in 8 of their last 10 games. So if you want to talk about wheels falling off there, that's it. Like they're in real trouble here. Even if Tua doesn't get injured, like, and things don't go well, like it could just be over.
Yeah, a couple things jumped into my head when you were talking about that. It could be an over team, right? If, like, just in terms of like if they are kind of clicking on all cylinders and you have healthy Tua and they can still do some stuff offensively, it seems like that would be the best way to maybe individually game wise early in the season look to kind of attack some overs. Where does Justin have them on terms of offensive line rankings?
27th.
Okay. Feels generous. I mean,
yeah,
it's a really, really inexperienced offensive line that I feel like it's built, and I would love to pick Justin's brain on it. I feel like it's built for like a power rushing attack. Some really big, inexperienced, like run maulers. That's not how they play football. There's no shot. That's not what they're doing. They're not lining up. Everything is predicated on timing, and they're going to try to run space and get in stretch runs and stuff like that for A-chain. Offensive, we know that the passing game is predicated on timing and quick hitting stuff, but like it's a pretty inexperienced offensive line from a pass blocking standpoint, and you have a fairly fragile quarterback behind them. So that makes me really nervous. This is where I think like the floor is pretty drastic, right? Like to your point, extrapolate 3 to 8 with Zach Wilson in there, and we're fighting the Saints and whoever else you think is in the bottom from a worst record standpoint. And then 25 to 1, they're off market compared where the Saints are right now, like plus 450 to be the worst team. So partially because I think the defense could be, I think it could be really bad. This is I think maybe the worst cornerback room in the league. They have a solid edge presence and defensive line, but that just doesn't matter if you just cannot hold up at all in the back end. Like Storm Duck, Cam Smith, not the live golfer Cam Smith, but and these are starting 2 perimeter corners for them this year, right? Not like, hey, contingency wise, like you might have to use these guys. Like these are your day one dudes, and that's hard. Like Jalen Ramsey might not be Jalen Ramsey of a few years ago anymore, but like he is still an above average starting cornerback who could like spend some time in the slot and do different things. It's rough now. So I just think there's a lot of floor for this team if you cannot stop opposing offenses. This is why I think, like you said, the Dolphins are clicking offensively with that cornerback room. This is an over team, right? Might not be week 1 in Indy, but maybe because I'm with you. I don't think Indy is very good this year, especially if they have to start Daniel Jones early and often. But I think there could be spots here to attack Miami, from an over standpoint.
I like that look as well. I mean, the defense, it's like who's the slot corner? Cater Kohu,
best corner on the team, and he's not even very good.
Yeah, right. And that's not saying a lot here. I think my favorite way to bet on this right now would probably be in the prop market. I like Jalen Waddle alts. So like Jonnu's gone. I think Tyreek could be straight up cooked. I think that's like also a possibility here. Fantasy points.
That's interesting. Yeah. I think he could be back. I think the wristling might have been a problem. I don't know. I'm kind of like, I don't know what you've been doing in fantasy or best ball with him. Like, I just think like he could be closer to, maybe like still a borderline top 10, top 12 receiver versus what he was last year. Or maybe he's cooked, but he seems to still have top level speed, right? Like,
so I don't know. I'm like going back and forth. So like fantasy points has like this metric called ASS actually. It's like average separation, whatever. And it's on routes, like it's on routes that they're not even targeted. So I think it like removes quarterback play essentially, like because obviously that's a massive concern. So in 2023, on vertically breaking routes, so again, just like routes you're using speed to get open essentially. He ran them on like the same amount 2023 versus 2024. He was 3rd best in average separation in 2023. 2024, he was 33rd. He went from 0.233 to 0.069. And then obviously yards per hour on targets per hour on fell by a lot because of, I think, the quarterback situation there. But that mattered to me a lot was like the average separation because, I mean, your wrist obviously impacts like play. But like, I don't know, should it really impact separation that much? I don't know. Like, that's kind of where I struggled with a little bit. So anyways, my point is on Waddle is like Jonnu's gone, which already I think gives him way more upside. like if Tyreek's, maybe he's not like cooked. He's not even like Cooper Kupp cooked, but like maybe he's just not Tyreek of old. He is like whatever, 32 at this point, 31.
Sure. Yeah.
Like this is about when athleticism kind of starts to be just sapped. And so like I think Waddle alts plus 150 to have 1,000 yards, and then 1,250 plus is plus 850. He just did this 2 years ago, even with Tyreek Hill having like a 2,000 yard season. So like any regression there, I think he could end up like right around there. So I don't know, just kind of like a bull case. I think could be interesting for Waddle, even though he's been kind of sneaky bad in his own right. But I think more of that had to do with quarterback play than Waddle himself.
Yeah, I think it's a good call. Yeah, I'd be interested to see. Those are, I think, telling numbers. It's also hard to be like, he's clearly not healthy with the wrist.
Right.
Does that affect him mentally? Like, in terms of like how engaged he is and how he's trying to get off the line because he's confident that if he gets off the line and gets separation, that he's getting the football. Like, I think there's probably a piece of that too, where, just target rate dipped massively. And it just seems like a guy that, maybe a little bit of a front runner, right? When things are good. But when things kind of, challenging a little bit, like seems like a guy that maybe you can, check out a little bit too. So yeah, I like the Waddle call though too, because it's still a young guy, right? Still ascending in terms of his athleticism and stuff like that. So if we do see 17 games out of Tua, I think Waddle would be the beneficiary. It's kind of a bounce back. So good call there.
Yeah, it could be interesting. I don't know. I also in like whatever, anyone in the fantasy best ball streets, I think he's a good pick in like the 5th round. Tyreek went up like 6 picks in ADP. Waddle went up like 2 in the 50s. So like, I don't know. I think it's a little underrated.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to get behind like Chop Robinson on the defensive side and stuff like that. Now it's kind of a rotation of Bradley Chubb's back and Jalen Phillips are back. And I'm also worried about, again, like if you cannot protect or cover in the back end, like Chop can beat his dude all day, but not get to the quarterback because the ball's already out. So, yeah, it's a very difficult. Again, I think the floor here is really low, and that, again, 25-1 sprinkle on Caesars to have the worst record for Miami is an interesting future. If you kind of agree with us that the floor is pretty low. It's also kind of, again, another bet onto a not staying healthy. Like Jeff calls out like his season long prop, like under 3,500 passing yards. I get it, right? It's under or nothing, but like if it's an extended injury, I'd rather have the 25-1 ticket than the -115, right? So it's kind of the same idea in a way, but baking on a little bit more of a severe injury.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't projected for 4,100 yards because I would assume Paulson just has him for like 15 games or 14 games, which I don't know if like he's a very hard guy to project. If it's literally just a bet against his health. Like, I mean, that's like if he stays healthy, he's definitely throwing for more than 3,500 yards. It's just like, can he go an entire season without suffering a career-ending injury? That's the biggest question.
Yeah. Again, they have not won a playoff game since 2000, which is just wild. And I think Chris Greer, as the GM, has been there since 2002. So he's been there. Like, again, get a job with them. Like, find someone that's as loyal is the Ross family in Miami, because like that's insane in the way that the league works nowadays to be able to maintain employment when you just can't win a playoff game. So, all right. Last is the Jets. Jets are 250-1 to win the Super Bowl. Win total. There are some 5.5 juice to the over. DraftKings 6.5, slightly juiced to the under at -145. 18-1 to win the division. They are plus 475 to make the playoffs, -600 to miss. Kind of middle of the pack in terms of strength of schedule here. Obviously, a lot of turnover here as well, with Aaron Glenn in as the head coach coming over from Detroit. Steve Wilkes is the defensive coordinator, but I think Glenn will have say, probably trying to get more man coverage out of what you can get from the Jets or what you've seen historically. New OC Tanner Eckstrom, along with all of this roster, says Eckstrom came from Detroit with Glenn. He was the passing game coordinator and the tight ends coach, but this guy got to start under Jim Harbaugh at San Diego State and at Michigan. His team is built to run the football. They're bringing over a Harbaugh/Detroit offensive coordinator and Justin Fields and a good offensive line and 2 good backs, Connor. I think this is going to be one of those teams that the games end a half an hour before everyone else because they're just running the football over and over again.
Yeah, and they have obviously 2 backs very capable. Like I think Braylon Allen's probably going to work in more. Breece Hall is probably going to still see plenty of work, and then Justin Fields is going to run the ball a ton. And the receiving course sucks. I mean, it's Garrett Wilson, and they're talking about like Josh Reynolds, Allen Lazard, Malachi Corley, They have a rookie tight end in Mason Taylor, who I think has upside, but like, again, he's a rookie tight end. You have just no idea. So it's a mess. I mean, this team is one of my first bets of the year was for them to be the worst team in the league. I don't know if that's like really that likely at this point, because they're probably going to just run the ball a lot and try and keep games close. But I have some concerns about this defense. I mean, they were legit like a bottom 5 unit by most metrics the second half of last season once they fired Robert Saleh. Like, they were just getting lit up. Like, Sauce was playing like shit. They, obviously are just like not like, it wasn't the same. Like, it wasn't anywhere near the same. They were a legit elite unit for multiple years. And then second half of last season just totally fell off. Maybe it was just mentality. Maybe it was like new coaching. I don't know, but it's much less clear than it was for me earlier at this point. And so if they're playing bad, like, it's a dilemma that we face every year when we're breaking down teams. Like, certain teams can want to run the ball as much as they can, and then like they fall behind. It's like, okay, well, then they have to pass. And then it's like, who is Justin Fields passing to? How is that going to work? Like, the Jets cannot come back from anything. Like, they're not going to be able to come back ever because they have Justin Fields throwing to a bunch of jabronis. Like, it's literally no one. So I have a lot of problems with this offense in general and the defense. So like, they're, I think, favored in 2 games, and it's against Carolina and Cleveland, who I think are both better teams than the Jets. So yeah, like, I mean, first 6 games, they're underdogs in the first 6 games straight, including like double or touchdown or more dogs in like 3 of them. So I don't know. I'm just not very high on this Jets team. You could sell me the bridge that they're going to just keep a lot of games close, and that could happen. If the defense plays well, I think that's probably the most likely. If they don't play well, I mean, this team's winning like 2 games.
Yes, and you have a worst record in the league ticket.
11-1 still right now.
Okay.
Caesar. Under 5.5 wins, I think, is interesting. There is an easier stretch down the end of the season, I will say. It's like, I don't know, New Orleans is in there, Jacksonville, Atlanta, Miami. They're like 1 to 4 point dogs in all those, but I don't know. I mean, they're worse than all those teams except for New Orleans. Maybe Miami.
I think the defense is going to be a little bit better. I think there's some injuries. I think it was just kind of like you felt like you were on a sinking ship. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near like the elite unit, but I think they can get back to, maybe top 10-ish units. They lost Jermaine Johnson early in the season. That was a problem for them. Will McDonald kind of developed late in the season, so they kind of bookend edge rushers. I think they're good, like Derek Anani they got from the Chiefs. He came in, solidifies the interior of the defensive line. So I think they could be solid up front. They need Sauce to be Sauce, to really be able to cook on the outside. They brought in Brandon Stevens from the Ravens. So, secondary group's not great. But again, so I think you could see like a top half of the league unit defensively. I don't think you're looking at a top 3, top 5 unit defensively anymore. The offensive line could be potentially elite, and it's like got a ton of depth. But to your point, like, that's just kind of how you can maybe dictate stuff early in the game. And maybe there's something there prop wise, but like, I don't know. I agree. Like, it's going to be really hard for them to come back. What's interesting in the prop sphere here, like in game by game and even season long, we know Justin Fields just doesn't, like, still young. That's your like bull case if you're trying to sell yourself. Like, look, there's still a lot of talent there. We've had multiple coaching staffs that have really struggled to get him to kind of the next level. What he does do though is he will jam the ball to his wide receiver 1. Right. So Garrett Wilson, from a prop standpoint, and even from like a fantasy standpoint, is still kind of interesting because he's probably going to get fed a ton, because we know Fields' problem is a ability to get off of the first read and work through your progressions. Jamming the ball to your wide receiver 1, well, that's fine. Right. Like, that worked for DJ Moore. DJ Moore 8 under Fields, right? Even last year when he got starts at Pittsburgh, like, he's fine locking in on, Pickens and your number 1 guy, but otherwise it's hard to get off of it. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think that the Jets and Miami are closer than like Miami is to New England. I think like New England's kind of the clear second. I think that the floor that the Miami possesses in terms of like some of these future markets I think they should be closer to the Jets, though I don't want to make any bull case for the Jets at all, just because I don't disagree with any of your points.
Yeah, I mean, they're just like complete opposites. Like, they're like the Jets are going to win on ground and pound and with their defense, and the Dolphins are going to win on Tua staying healthy and scoring 35 points a game. And so, like, it's funny because I think that they're going to, we'll make this prediction now. They're going to go 1-1 against each other this season. Miami's going to win by 30 one of the times and then lose like 17-13 the other time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that's exactly how it's going to go, right?
Yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense. It's exactly that's how the Jets are going to win football games. It's the only way, right?
Yeah.
You looked at that?
Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, Jets team total points under 335.
I started doing some research on like using the look ahead lines to just like to figure out team totals and implied team totals because those don't always line up with like the actual market itself. So I can look at what the Jets are at. 317 right now, total implied points. So that would definitely lend towards the under for sure. Because again, they're underdogs basically everything, and they're going to play slow and probably not going to be able to score. So yeah,
Not a fun
I like
spot,
that.
but probably a good bet. Yeah.
There's also I was looking into because I agree with you on the division, like clear 1, pretty clear 2, and then like I think 3 and 4. The prices are just not good. It's like plus like exact. You can bet like exact for like the division or whatever, and it's just they're not good. It's like plus 150, for like exact 1 and 2, and then like it's just not worth playing. I don't think.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. Jim's got a good look out here. Yeah, this Jets 0-5 start, 6-1. Steelers, Bills. Then I actually looked in the schedule. I'm very curious what they do here. I mean, you're staying in the East Coast, but to go from New York to Tampa, back to New York, back to Miami is kind of an interesting little travel stretch early in the season. Again, like these guys are flying on their own, like team private jet and stuff. But like, New York, Florida, kind of a tough stretch, which actually makes me think that the Dallas game works out better for Dallas in terms of how the schedule breaks out. Cause that could be, I think Dallas is going to be favored comfortably, but not a game that I would lock in, for a W. So I don't hate this at all. 6-1. I'm not quite sure what book has this, but that's probably a decent look.
Dallas is like in my opinion, kind of a better version of Miami. Just in like they're going to score a bunch. Defense probably isn't that good.
Secondary is a question.
Exactly. So I would say they're kind of similar, but I think Dallas has more juice at this point. So yeah, it's like, could they beat Pittsburgh? I don't think so. I think Pittsburgh is probably going to win, but it's going to be a real ugly game. Like all right. So I looked it up. What do you think the guess on the total is for that game week 1? Because they have that. I'll tell you what my guess was after in the official total.
30.5.
I guess 39. It's 40. I think that's high, to be honest. I think that's, especially in this game. Like if the Jets start with the ball, like the Steelers aren't going to see the ball maybe until like, 6 minutes left in the first quarter or something like that. Like it's going to be, they're just going to burn off the first 7-8 minutes.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's we're right there. Both leaning under. I mean, it's kind of the Miami game, right? Assuming that there's health with Buffalo and Tampa Bay, right? It gets kind of comes down to the Miami game. I had this ticket I think last year 17-1 on Jacksonville, and it got down to the final game, and they won, which was a bummer. But yeah, I don't hate this. It looks like Jim's saying it's on DraftKings. So 6-1 Jets start 0-5. Probably a pretty good look. If you can get anything down on DraftKings.
Who did they beat?
It was the Colts.
Fucking Colts.
Yep.
They stink. And they actually almost won. Was that a Flacco game? Or no, it was not a Flacco game. It was who played that game for the it was a Flacco game. Okay.
Yeah, it was a Flacco game. Yeah.
And he had 359 yards and 3 touchdowns, and they couldn't get it done. That's tough.
Yeah, that was a painful one. So it's a good call out here. I like this. It's a good market. This could be fun. So I think they're probably taking more of a like season-long look at teams versus schedules specific stuff. So you might be able to pick off some tough starts schedule-wise and find some decent value. They're fun futures.
That's kind of why I liked doing taking all the game spreads and totals and then putting into like an implied points thing, because I don't really know how they set like their total points like market like they have on here, because it's obviously not through what the process that I did, which I'm using their lines against themselves basically. I just don't. Maybe they're too lazy to do it. Maybe they don't think that's right. Maybe they're just like setting it higher because they know people are just going to bet overs anyways. That's also possible. I just either way, I don't think it's a very efficient market. Kind of like exactly what you were saying here.
Yeah. Adam's question in the chat: think the exact order: Buffalo, New England, Miami, Jets at plus 290 has any value? I don't love that price because I also think that they very much could flip flop the Jets and Miami. If again we have kind of the break glass, if Tua goes down situation in Miami, it could be bad quick. And that's not like even a pro Jets take. That's just like a Zach Wilson starting with an offensive line that's potentially really bad, potentially the worst in the league, and a secondary that can't hold up. So that's kind of my point. Is I think Miami is maybe a little bit closer to the Jets than they are to New England. Again, bullish on potential outcomes ceiling wise if everything kind of works there, but like that's just game by game overs, not season long stuff. So yeah, not a play I would make, Adam. Appreciate you guys hanging out and throwing stuff in the chat though.
Yeah, it's tough because there's now so many markets for like all these different features. And I think that there are good ways to play the majority of them, but like I think understanding the range of outcomes but then like we have to factor in the price too, because obviously that has some level of implied probability, but like it's also just like philosophically, like we don't want to, we don't like to tie up money on things that are like too short of odds for too long, just because unless we think there's like a massive edge, again, like obviously we bet season long player prop unders because we hit those at like a ridiculous rate. I think I hit like 75% or something like that of my season long unders last year, which is obviously worth it. But these are a little bit tougher because it's plus 290, could have some value, but it's not enough for me to play it, I don't think.
I agree. Yeah. So sounds like we like some in-season stuff reaction wise based off of, some early, gameplay, game to game things. I think that most wins plus 450 Buffalo might be one of my favorite bets in terms of how to approach this division. Fine with anything under on the Miami side. But again, I think even more so than the binary yes, no on 7.5 wins. I think that just the 25-1 sprinkle to have the worst record is probably a pretty good look too. And Connor making the case for the Jets worst record, and that's still out there at 11-1 too. So if you're looking for some little longer futures, I think those are probably the best ways to kind of attack the AFC East. Do you have any other thoughts and summary before we wrap?
Jalen Waddle, 1250 plus receiving yards at plus 850. I think that's fun. Also a bonus one here that is, well, actually, I don't know if you have any other bets for this division, but I have one last bonus parting thought here. All right, so there's some rumors swirling around right now that Najee Harris was involved in a fireworks incident and lost an eye. And so I've been, furiously trying to confirm this rumor for the last, 10 hours or so, 12 hours. And I haven't been able to successfully do so. If you search Twitter, like Najee Harris fireworks, there are like 10 people who don't follow each other who are like convinced that this has actually happened and are like, oh yeah, my cousin works for that. So I obviously follow those people and DM'd all of them. And I was like, it's like, what's the deal? And they're like, oh, like my cousin works for the hospital, or like, oh, my brother is like a firefighter in the town. And like it happened, like there is a reported fireworks incident where people got injured in the town where Najee Harris grew up, and his mom, like I think still lives, or like his friends still live. And he was there on 4th of July. So it's like, I'm not saying that it, like, I don't know if for sure happened, but Omari and Hampton Olds are very much in play. So I'm sprinkling a little bit, just, and then obviously if the news officially breaks on that, like there's obviously the counter argument of like, why hasn't anyone like reported it yet? I think people are like tagging beat writers and like replying to beat writers. I think it's actually more of an indictment that no one is like said, oh yeah, Najee Harris is fine. Like this didn't happen. Like at this point, we're like 4 days out at this point, 3 days out. So I don't know. I'm surprised that no one said anything either way. And so for me, that leaves it even more uncertain to like, okay, Omari and Hampton, 1250 rushing yards, rookie of the year, and 1,000 plus rushing yards, like probably doesn't get there if Najee Harris isn't hurt or there. But like if this happens, obviously you're in a, again, feel very bad about Najee Harris, but like this is, you're in a really good spot from a betting standpoint if that happens. So,
we're here to leverage information. We're not here to, play morality police. You fuck around with a Roman candle and things are going to happen, I don't know.
Yeah. I've DM'd 3 of the most random people ever that I like, I'm not going to leak their screen names, but they're very funny names. And yeah, like none of them follow each other. None of them are like, related at all. And this all started with someone, friend of the show DMing me about it, like asking if I had heard anything. And I was like, no, of course not. Just like, let me but let me poke around. So nothing confirmed, all secondhand sources, all random Twitter people. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, TBD. If it ends up coming out, just go to your books, jam Omari and Hampton over 700 rushing yards, 750 rushing yards as much as you can, and you're willing to stomach, and you're probably in a good spot.
Nice. Could win anyway.
It could win anyways. That's the thing. It's like it could win. Like Najee Harris could suck. He could get injured again. Omari and Hampton could be amazing. All those things are possible.
You didn't see it coming. Maybe Najee Harris didn't see it coming either. So you just never know. Literally.
You might not see anything coming for a while, honestly, at this point.
Yeah, all right. We'll be on the lookout for that little nugget, little bonus, little AFC West bonus nuggets. Maybe we'll be back with the AFC West in the next 2 weeks, one of the next 2 weeks. We have more Najee Harris news. So I appreciate, again, everyone hanging out with us today. Move the line wherever you listen to podcasts. 4for4 bets on the YouTube channel. Again, 4for4.com/plans. You want to scoop up the betting subscription if you want everything that we're doing this season on the NFL side. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Subscribe before you take off. Thumbs up. All those things help the show. For Connor, I'm Ryan. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks, everybody.